Hey, what is up everyone? Kolst here. So the new expansion has been announced, which is Fracture and Alterac Valley. So they've been actually revealing cards at a very rapid rate. Close to 40 cards have already been announced as of recording this video. So we're just going to go through the first batch that they've revealed here and talk about how they're going to impact Arena and just any general thoughts I have about the other modes that I do occasionally play. So there's a bunch of stuff in this announcement, which if I remember, I may put into the description of the video. The one thing I do want to bring up specifically is that there is a new keyword, honorable kill, which is essentially if whatever card has this text on it is able to do a last hit on a minion, it's able to kill a minion with exact damage. So, if you deal 2 damage and kill a 2 health minion, you will trigger some kind of an effect. A lot of these are stat buffs, but there could be other things. So that's the first keyword, to get that out of the way. And with that, we're going to get into the cards. So we'll talk about that one. Actually, we'll talk about this now. So because if you're not aware, I'm going to be, of course, talking mostly about Arena. Hero cards, since we'll bring up now, are not typically in Arena. It is possible to generate a hero card in Arena if you have, something that's discover a card. It is generally very difficult because most discovers say discover a minion or discover a spell or something, so it's pretty difficult, but it is possible to generate hero cards, even though the precedent has been set that they are not draftable in Arena. But with that, we'll talk about the first one here. I'm just going to go down the list so that they appear on this page. This is the Play Hearthstone page, which is Shadowcrafter Scabs, 7 mana hero card, which Battlecry casts Vanish. If you're not aware of Vanish, this is a card that was actually removed from the set in the core set rotation. It used to be it might have even been removed before the core set, I don't actually remember, but essentially removes all cards to the player's hand. And this thing also summons 2 4/2s with stealth. So this is just like an absurd value card. Like, what the heck? And then it also gives you this hero power, which is the next card you play. This turn costs 2 less. So basically, it refunds 2 mana every turn, and you get 5 armor. This thing is absolutely insane. I'm shocked that they printed this, to be honest, but maybe it won't be quite the menacing constructed, but it's a crazy card that they printed. But with that, we'll move on to other cards that are actually draftable in Arena. So this is another rogue card, which is Snowfall Graveyard. 3 mana spell. Oh, another thing is that they have these kind of cards. I forget what the name of them is actually, but they have these types of cards that there's going to be several of these that essentially they have some passive effect that lasts for 3 turns from when you play them. This is the first one. Is your death rattles triggered twice. So typically, there's been other things, like specifically Hunters had the ability, they've had things like the ability to cast death rattles twice, things like that, cast a death wall that you have on board. None of those cards have ever been good in Arena. And this is another case where, the thing is that you just don't tend to have that many death rattles in Arena typically. So there's definitely a potential that this kind of thing could work, and it could work absurdly well. But again, also keep in mind that this is the fact you have to play a death rattle minion and then play this, or play this and then play a death rattle minion maybe, but you actually have to have the death rattle trigger while this thing is active, and that might be something that's a little bit awkward sometimes. So overall, this thing is probably going to be a little too inconsistent to be super good in Arena, but of course in the right deck, it could work. But overall, probably not a card you're going to be drafting too often. Going to be moving on to Druid now. So Druid, the first card we have here is Capture Cold Tooth Mine, a epic spell. Choose one, draw your lowest cost card or draw your highest cost card. That is a very interesting effect, actually. So essentially in Arena, if you're going to draw cards, generally, especially if you're going to, pay mana to draw cards, you're going to want to draw something expensive because you're going to want value. So here, 2 mana to draw your highest cost card. That isn't actually super bad. If you have something specifically, imagine you happen to draft Ysera or Sneeds or something, it would be worth doing this. Overall, probably not something you're going to want to prioritize in every deck, but this probably is more pickable than you would expect. I can't imagine really in Arena you're ever going to really choose to draw your lowest cost card. You know, in Constructed, maybe there's specific things you could be fishing for, but it's I just can't imagine this being a thing in Arena that you're actually going to want to do. So it's still going to be probably too expensive for most decks, but it's a thing that you could consider if you have like, you know, super premium top end. Okay, with that, moving on to another card, which is also kind of expensive, is Frostwolf Kennels. This is another one of those ongoing effects here. This is 3 mana. At the end of your turn, summon a 2/2 wolf with stealth. Lasts 3 turns. So the thing with this card is that, you know, you get a 2/2 stealth at the end of your first turn. 3 mana for 2/2 is very slow. At the end of your next turn, you get another 2/2. At that point, it's paid off, kind of, because 3 mana for 2 2/2s is a decent card, but you still had to pay time for that, right? And then at the end of the third turn, you get an extra wolf, right? But I think overall, this card is just a little bit too slow to really be worth it. Like, definitely, like, it's one of those things where, especially if you get it, it's not completely useless. Like, if you, some of these cards, the function they fulfill is that you can essentially invest into future turns rather than your current turn. If you think your opponent's, you know, if you're playing against like a priest or a warlock who's just like hero power passing, and you're like, oh, I wonder which way my opponent's gonna blow up my board, right? So you can at least invest in the future turns. Like, this card isn't totally useless, but overall, you generally want cards that actually do something a little bit more immediate, right? So I think this card is just a little bit too slow to really be worth it, because essentially the upside just isn't enough to warrant the cost. With that, let's move on to the next Druid card, which is Frost Saber Matriarch, a 7 mana 4/5 taunt, which costs 1 last for each beast you summon this game. It is itself a beast. So there is a problem with beasts. It is known as Galaka Glutton. But overall, as of recording this video, we don't know what the next rotation is going to be for Arena. They probably are going to change the rotation, so we don't know that, because currently there are a lot of beasts because of Journey to Ungoro. Overall, assuming that Journey to Ungoro is going to rotate out, there might not actually be that many beasts to draft for this. So that would be one knock against this. And also the fact that, you know, Galaka Glutton exists. Galaka Glutton, of course, if you're not aware, being the thing that just eats a beast and really punishes you for playing any beast. Of course, this isn't going to help it either. So overall, this is probably not going to be a card you're going to be super excited to draft in Arena. However, it is worth noticing that this is not just a beast you've played, it's a beast you've summoned, which is relevant for the next card we have here, which is Dire Frostwolf. Another Druid card, 4 mana 4/4 stealth with Death Rattle, summon a 2/2 wolf with stealth. So this will actually give 2 different discounts to that previous card. So I'm not saying at all that this is going to make that other card draftable necessarily, more than it, you know, marginally would be, but this is just a very good 4-drop, right? A 4 mana 4/4 stealth, you know, a 5 mana 5/5 stealth is a pickable card. Not amazing, but, you know, it's pickable. So this is just, you know, a slightly scaled down version, but it also gives you an extra 2/2 at the end, which also has stealth. So just very annoying minion. And these kind of stealth minions are very useful for, particularly if you're ever find yourself in a position where you have to play from behind your opponent, you know, being able to play a stealth minion just prevents them from being able to completely knock you off board, which is important playing class like Druid, which some of their cards require you to actually be on board to get full advantage out of. So something like this is extremely good for Druid especially, and that's the class that it's in. So this should be a very good card for Arena. And with that, we'll touch on, there is another hero card here, which is Wildheart Guff. This one is quite a nuts card in general. Don't know if there'll be a way to discover an Arena, but so this is a 5 mana hero battle cry. Set your maximum mana to 20, gain a mana crystal, and also draw a card, which is just, they're going pretty crazy with the hero cards in this expansion. Okay, and this thing also has a hero power where you get to choose whether you draw a card or gain a mana crystal for 2 mana. So it's just pretty insane, but of course, again, it won't be draftable in Arena, presumably. And with that, let's move on to the next class, which is Demon Hunter. So Demon Hunter has another one of these prolonged effect cards here, which is Field of Strife. 2 mana, your minions have +1 attack, lasts for 3 turns. So this is another one that seems like very conservatively balanced, honestly. The idea would be, you know, you would have some board full of tokens that you would combo this with. But I don't know, like it just feels like this doesn't really do enough. 1 mana for gain +1/+1 is a card which you can trigger when you actually need it. So like, I don't know. This just doesn't feel like it does enough, but like it's definitely not completely garbage. Just it feels like you wouldn't pick this over something that's actually more consistent and does something. And with that, let's move on next to the next Demon Hunter card, which is the legendary Karya Felsoul. 6 mana 6/6 Battle Cry, transform into a 6/6 copy of a demon in your deck. So this is going to depend on exactly what demons exist in any given rotation. In general, 6 mana 6/6 obviously isn't great, but it's not terrible. So the thing is that there are demons that are good and there are demons that are bad to copy the text from. I think generally speaking, demons have good text in Demon Hunter, but I'd have to go look through, and again, like it's going to depend on the rotation. But overall, this probably isn't going to be a card that's going to do a crazy amount. You know, this thing is intended for like a big Demon Hunter. We have certain big demons that have really big effects. In Arena, you may be forced to take demons that kind of don't have, you know, small demons that don't really do anything. So overall, I would expect the upside of this just isn't going to be that high. Probably you're gonna, this is a legendary again, so you're probably gonna be offered it against something better most of the time, but we'll have to see, of course. With that, let's move on to the next Demon Hunter card, which is Warden of Chains. This is a 4 mana 2/6 taunt with a Battle Cry. If you're holding a demon that costs 5 or more, gain +1/+2. So again, this is more, you know, big Demon Hunter support and constructed. And also, again, you're not really that often going to have a big demon in your hand in Arena. So this thing is probably a 4 mana 2/6 is like not the worst thing ever, but it's not particularly good. So you're not going to be super excited to pick this unless you happen to have a bunch of big demons already. Again, it's going to depend on the rotation and what other cards they reveal, but generally speaking, you're just not going to have that many big demons. So this thing usually won't be super premium, but you know, in the right deck, if you can get a 4 mana 3/8 taunt, that's pretty damn insane. I mean, that's like Hecklebot stats, right? Without the downside, obviously. So it's very strong if you trigger it, but it's just the most of the time you can't expect to reliably. And with that, let's move on to the next card, which is Flag Runner. This is a 3 mana 1/6. Whenever a friendly minion dies, gain +1 attack. So this, I want to say, I'm definitely not willing to say this is like super premium, but this can actually really do some stuff, I think. So, you know, Demon Hunter does have these kind of cards that, you know, you can summon a bunch of 1/1 tokens and then you can have them die while this thing's out there. This thing has 6 health, so you can just throw it. You can honestly even throw this into a minion and have it live, and if you have some kind of synergy, it'll work. So this thing definitely has some potential. If you can even, you know, just play this on curve when your 2-drop trades into their 2-drop, you know, you get to play a 3 mana 2/6 and then it grows from there, potentially, right? A 3 mana 2/6 is a good card, right? So this thing definitely seems, I would say, you know, on the pretty good side. Probably not absolutely insane. It does have some snowball potential, so it could when you game type exactly, but it doesn't scale that hard, so it's probably not going to. But overall, you're probably just going to get pretty good stats out of this overall. So I think it's pretty good. Definitely not, you know, crazy good. And then that's all the Demon Hunter cards for now. We will move on to Mage. So Mage has a spell here, which is called Build a Snowman. 3 mana, summon a 3/3 snowman that freezes. Add Build a Snow Brute to your hand, which adds a 6 mana spell, which summons a 6/6 Snow Brute that freezes, which adds a Snowgurt to your hand, which adds a 9 mana 9/9 that freezes. So if you're not aware, this is actually basically a reprint of an old card, which was one of the cards which had like an extremely high rating score on one specific rating algorithm back in the day, which was Pyros. Pyros was a 2/2, which gave you a 6/6, which gave you a 10/10. Now this thing is just, I think it's fair to say, just a bit better. Not only a 3/3, which gives you a 6/6, which gives you a 9/9. I think that's just slightly better. But also, you know, each of these cards freezes, right? It has like the water elemental text. So this is just a power crept version of Pyros essentially. So, you know, not the greatest immediate tempo card anytime you play it, but just it's a hell of a lot of value for one card. And that extra freeze text is totally relevant as well. So this seems like a very, very strong card for Arena. It just, from a value side, it does way more than almost any other card has ever existed, basically. And it fills in your tempo. It does a lot. And with that, let's move on to the other Mage card that has been revealed so far, which is Siphon Mana. This is 2 mana spell, deal 2 damage, honorable kill, reduce the spells in your cost your hand by 1. So this is terrifying constructed, but we are talking about Arena primarily, so I will focus on Arena. And generally speaking, in Arena, this probably isn't that scary, right? 2 mana deal 2 is not really worth a card. You know, it's not really good enough. And the thing is that you just don't tend to have that many spells, just period. You know, it is possible, but generally speaking, even when you do, how relevant is that discount? Really, probably not that much. So this card is probably going to be a bit on the weaker side as far as Arena is concerned, because you just don't expect to really be able to abuse that upside super hard like you might be able to in Constructed. With that, let's move on to the next class, which is Shaman. So Shaman has more of this kind of snowball theme going on. The first card we have here is another 3 mana spell, Snowball Fight. This is deal 1 mana to a minion and freeze it. If it survives, repeat this on another minion. So essentially, this seems like very, very powerful removal, frankly. So, I mean, you can imagine the amount that this will do if your opponent... Just imagine, for example, if your opponent had 2 8/8s on board and that was the entire board. You're going to kill one. You're going to freeze both of them, but kill one. And also probably damage both of them pretty heavily, right? This is an insanely, insanely strong comeback card. So again, like this thing, it'll repeat on another minion. It doesn't specify whether it's your minion or the opponent's minion, right? It doesn't have to go back and forth. It could just keep, you know, going ping-ponging between their 2 minions if they had to, right? So this just does a lot. And again, like it's limited a bit by the sense that you can't really play it when you have a giant board because it's just going to freeze all your stuff. But just as a, you know, stalling and removal tool, this is just insanely, insanely strong. It seems like it's probably one of the strongest, you know, removal stall spells they've printed ever, probably. And I'm talking about like probably Construct as well as Arena. So like this just seems extremely, extremely good. But of course, again, you know, if you're drafting tempo, you wouldn't value it quite so highly. But it'd be one of those things where it's worth it just for the comeback potential, most likely. And with that, let's move on to the other Shaman card, which is a legendary, which is Baron Glacier. This is a 7 mana 6/6 battle cry. For each frost spell you've cast this game, summon a 3/4 elemental that freezes. So I was watching someone talk about this in Constructed, and the funny thing is that as of right now, there are literally 0 frost spells in Constructed in Standard. Except for, of course, the card that we just talked about is a frost spell, so that one will count, right? So you have this, but that's an epic. And we will have to see, you know, based off what rotates into Arena, whether or not there will be more frost spells. But currently, there is just literally no synergy for this. Unless you happen to get that exact epic. This is just a 7 mana 6/6, right? So it's hard to imagine this being super good just off of that, but you never know. Maybe they're gonna literally print like 6 more frost spells that are common, and then you're actually gonna be able to get this off. But again, most likely you're probably just gonna have, you know, better legendaries to choose from than this. So probably not gonna be super good. But again, we'll have to see if they go crazy, you know. And let's move on to the next class, which is Warlock. So Warlock, we have the first one is a legendary spell, interestingly, which is Amzin's Phylactery. Discover a friendly death rattle minion that died this game. Give your means its death rattle. This is an absurdly powerful effect, potentially. There have been a lot of cards like this in Arena, you know, that a lot of them typically, you know, tend to be things where it's like, you know, resummon your minions when they die or return them to your hand, get, you know, things like that. This one is in that vein, but it also requires you to play a powerful death rattle. But you know, if you can just get like a board full of 1/1s that all have death rattle, you know, summon a 7-drop or something, you know, it very can easily just win you the game. The thing is that, you know, especially with how tempo aggressive Arena has been, it might be a little inconsistent to really pull something like this off, and there aren't necessarily going to be that many really powerful death rattles in the game, or especially in your deck, right? So this is one of those things where on average it probably won't be that good, but it will be the best card ever printed sometimes. So it's just going to really depend on your deck, right? I feel like that is what it is there. Overall, probably not super premium, but you know, could be very, very premium in certain decks. Moving on to the next card, which we have, which is another hero card here, which is Redlich Tamsin. 6-mana hero card, which again, hero card's probably not going to be an arena, but it might be possibly discoverable. So Battlecry, deal 3 damage to all minions, summon 3 rifts into your deck, and then also draw 3 cards. And these rifts are cards which cast a 3/3 when summoned. So 6 mana, deal 3 AoE, which will probably a decent amount of time summon you with 3/3 immediately, and then you can also, you know, continue to shuffle more rifts into your deck, which will give you more 3/3s in the future. Some of the others, like, it probably isn't gonna quite pay for itself in mana the turn you play it, but you know, it's another one where if you ever were to get this in the arena, it would be a pretty strong win condition, because it's, even if you never draw any of these, like, you're still drawing cards off of this, right? You draw 3 cards immediately and then 4, so it'd be like a pretty strong win condition, right? So, but I won't go too far in it, because again, like, this card probably won't be draftable in arena, and it'll be very rare to see it discovered, most likely. So move on to the next card, which is Hollow Abomination. 5 mana, 2/8, battle cry, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions with honorable kill, gaining the minion's attack. So this is a random example. Like, if your opponent just happened to have like 4 1/1s on their board, just like that, this thing would become a 5 mana 6/8 that would wipe them all away, which is just absolutely, like, that's like a game-winning swing in arena, right? Like, that's something that's almost impossible to come back from. And even if you just kill, like, imagine there's just like a 3/1 or something, you have like this, or your opponent, imagine it's on 5 mana, imagine both you guys played Chillwind Yetis, you know, 4 mana 4/5s, and then they run into each other, and then you get to kill theirs, and then you get a 6/8 that kills their Yeti off, right? Like, the potential of this card is extremely, extremely high. And what's worth mentioning as well is that with honorable kill, this isn't just on the battle cry. If this thing kills another thing, like, you have that 5 mana 6/8, and then your opponent tries to respond to it with like a 5/6 or something, well, you get to kill their 5/6, and then you gain another 5 attacks, so now you have an 11/3 left over, right? Something. So the honorable kill mechanic is able to snowball continually. It's not just on the battle cry. So this just seems like it does a lot, just raw stats and tempo, essentially. So this seems like it's going to be an extremely, extremely powerful card. It's going to be probably frustrating, because this is a common in Warlock, and Warlock really likes to have these kind of ping effects. So this is going to be a very, very impactful card for arena. And with that, let's move on to, I believe this thing's in weird order. Let's move on past the neutrals. We'll talk about those at the end. This is Snowed In. So Snowed In is a 3 mana warrior spell. Destroy a damaged minion. Freeze all other minions. So this is another thing. Again, it kind of has the same kind of design as the Shaman freeze spell, which is that, you know, you're a bit limited in your ability to use this in aggro, for example, because, you know, it has a negative effect on your own board. This thing will freeze all of your minions, not just your opponent's minions. But again, as a stall tool, this is absolutely insane. It's, you know, it's execute, but for 1 extra mana, you get to cast Frost Nova, which is, you know, insanely powerful. Being able to freeze is very good nowadays, just for saving health, if nothing else, right? And maybe denying value trades as well. So this is just an extremely good card in a control deck. With that, that's the only warrior card revealed so far. So let's move on to Hunter. So Hunter has 5 cards revealed. The first one here is Ram Tamer. So this is a 3 mana 4/3. So good stats off the bat. With Battle Cry, if you control a secret, gain +1/+1 and stealth. So a 3 mana 5/4 stealth is absolutely unfair. But the thing is that, you know, especially if you're going to play it on curve, it means you spent your turn 2 playing a secret, which isn't necessarily the best use of your turn 2, but not necessarily super bad, right? So overall, I mean, this is a 3 mana 4/3 with pretty attainable upside. You can play this because, I mean, probably even better than playing this on curve would just be to play it on turn 5 with a secret, right? So you get a 5 mana 5/4 with a secret. It costs you 2 cards, right? So overall, I mean, it's a good card. You'll definitely see a lot of it. Sometimes you'll just take it as a 3 mana 4/3, but probably not going to be, you know, overwhelmingly game winning or anything. Then we'll move on to the next card, which is Revive Pet. 3 mana spell here. Discover a friendly beast that died this game and summon it. So quickly, this is a discover. So just because you happen to have, you know, a 1 or 2 mana beast, it doesn't potentially ruin the card, right? But again, it might be a little difficult. Not all decks are going to have super ideal uses for this card, right? You can't play this on curve for good value ever, right? So this is a late game card. So you're going to need to combo with very specific things that you're just not always going to have in Arena. So probably not going to be super consistent. But again, one of those things where in the right deck could be very, very crazy. Moving on next to another card which will not be very, very consistent, which is Wing Commander Ichman. Ichman or Ichman? 9 mana 5/4, summon a beast from your deck and give it rush. If it kills a minion this turn, repeat. So again, like this is something that feels like it's going to be extremely... Trying to pull this off in Constructed might be kind of interesting, honestly, but trying to pull this off in Arena, you don't tend to have that many giant beasts, you know? This thing requires you to not only have the beast, but your opponent also has to line their minions up in such a way, and you might have to, you know, there might be RNG involved just trying to, you know, get them to actually pull something, right? And small beast in your deck might screw this up. There's just like, this is not going to be remotely consistent at all. This is probably, you know, bottom tier Arena card. But in the right deck, you know, it might work. But yeah, probably not going to be very consistent then. Next we'll move on to another one of these sustained effect cards, which is Dunbalder Bunker. 2 mana at the end of your turn, draw a secret and set its cost to 1. Lasts 3 turns. So I will say, Hunter is a class which has like probably the most pickable secrets because they have like kind of the right mix of, they're pretty tempo efficient and they do enough, you know, like Paladin secrets are very tempo efficient, but they just don't do enough typically. But Hunter secrets tend to do a bit more, so they're somewhat pickable. And this also, it's worth noting that this thing does nothing the turn you play it. That makes it quite slow, but potentially, right, if you do have secrets, this is 2 mana draw 3, even though they're delayed. And you're drawing discounted cards too, so it kind of pays for itself. You pay that upfront cost, but then you will get that tempo back, essentially, right? So this, I want to say, is pretty decent. It's going to, first of all, depend on what secrets are actually in rotation, which again, we don't know about in Arena. But overall, as far as synergy cards are concerned, this thing does actually feel pretty good. It's still going to be a little bit slow in like a super tempo meta if that's what we end up in. But, you know, I don't think you're probably not going to want to pick this super highly on pick 1. But, you know, if you see this halfway through the draft and you already have a secret or 2, like this definitely seems like something you could totally justify picking. With that, let's move on to the last Hunter card, which is Bloodseeker. This is a 2 mana 2/2 weapon. With Honorable Kill, gain +1/+1. So a 2 mana 2/2 weapon, generally speaking, would not be good enough, right? But the whole point of this is that if you get to honorable kill things, which again is to kill something with exact lethal damage on your turn, then this thing just continues to grow. And because it gains durability here, this thing would be, you know, you get to deal 2 damage and then 3 damage and then 4 damage, and you get to waste 1 charge. So you can not honorable kill once and still grow this thing. So overall, it does feel like, obviously with this, you're going to want to have other ways of dealing damage just to line things up properly. But this is going to be an extremely frustrating card to play against probably, because this is by itself a win condition, right? If your opponent doesn't have weapon removal, then and you have ways to set up those honorable kills, you're just going to be able to straight up win the game off of a card like this. So this seems extremely strong and potentially, honestly, very oppressive. Probably not going to be like the most objectively powerful card in the game, but this is something that's a little bit more on the concerning side, honestly, because it will snowball people completely out of the game. But again, it's gonna be limited just by the raw amount of weapon removal that is available right now, because there is a lot of that in Arena as well. But yeah, I definitely would say this is probably gonna be, you know, I mean, if you get, especially like if you ever play this against someone that just plays like a 2-mana 3/2, like you are doing really well all of a sudden, because even if it gets weapon removed at that point, you're ready killed a 2-drop for your 2-mana weapon. It's already done its job, but you know, it has this potential of doing just so much more. But yeah, it seems like a very welcome addition to Hunter. So with that, we move on to the next class, the last class actually that has cards revealed here, which is Paladin. So this is Templar Captain. This is an 8-mana 8/8 rush. We needed more 8-mana 8/8 rushes with upside. Not just 8-mana 8/8 rush. It, after it attacks a minion, summon a 5/5 defender with taunt. I feel like I probably don't need to say anything, honestly, with this card. So the thing I'll say is, like, even with cards like, you know, you have things like Blood of Griffin, for example, where this is kind of similar in a sense. This is a 9-mana 8/8 that also summons a 5/5 at the end of your turn, effectively, right? But one thing that limits the potential of a card like this is that it actually has taunt, so that you can't actually protect it behind taunt, right? Not only can you protect this thing behind taunt, it protects itself behind taunt, okay? So if you're playing a class that doesn't have the ability to spell remove things, well, screw you, I guess, basically, because you're just never gonna kill this, right? It's kind of like a Wrath Golem type effect here. So there are a lot of classes where it's like, if you're even on board and you play this, you literally just win, the game ends. This is going to be, you know, one of the early candidates for cards that like just maybe just shouldn't be allowed in Arena, because it's just like way over the top as far as power level is concerned for this mode. But, you know, we'll have to see. There are a few other cards which already been announced, which a couple we'll talk about in a second, which may also go into that category. But before we get there, let's move on to the other Paladin cards here, which the first one is Dunbaldar Bridge, which is 4-mana spell. Another one of these sustained effect cards. After you summon a minion, give it +2/+2. Lasts for 3 turns. So this is interesting. At 4 mana, this is at the point where, you know, you're not necessarily going to be able to fill your hand with a whole bunch of really cheap things to really abuse the crap out of this in Arena, right? But I feel like at 4 mana, it seems rather fair to me. If you get a bunch of divine, the ideal thing would be to have like a whole bunch of cheap divine shield minions, like 1 mana 1/1 divine shield, you know, that kind of stuff. And then you could really get value out of this very quickly, potentially on the turn you play it even, and then you just get more upside. But I want to say this seems like it'd be pretty fair overall. Most likely what you're going to want to do, some people will probably play it on turn 4 and then try to, you know, blow up out of that, but more likely you're probably going to just want to play this on, you know, turn 7 or something, and then you'll just dump all the minions in your hand and get like a bunch of buffs, essentially being like a really slow conditioning, right? So I want to say this will be okay, pretty decent on average, but probably not super nuts. That's my estimation, but I could be wrong on this one. This one's going to be a little interesting to see play out, I think. But overall, probably not going to be super busted, because again, like things like conditioning are probably just still better than this. And then the last Paladin card we have here is Lightforged Cario. This is a 7-mana hero. Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all enemies. Equip a 2/5 movable object. So this thing basically, again, like this probably won't be an Arena because it's a hero card, but this thing essentially gives you a 2-mana weapon that just literally never goes away. It also makes it so your hero takes half damage for the rest of the game, which is pretty insane, and also has a hero power, which is literally Blessing of Kings for half the mana. Pretty damn strong win condition in a control deck, but again, probably won't see it in Constructed too. Alright, so that is it for the class cards I've announced so far. So thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone. Appreciate you guys all being here. If you like the video, like it. If you dislike it, and make sure to leave a comment on your favorite cards or cards you're most terrified of seeing from these batch of cards that have been announced so far. Of course, I'm going to continue to make more of these videos as they announce more. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more again. But thanks a lot. I appreciate you guys for the continued support. We'll see you guys in the next one.